Hi, this is Chuck Oliver. Welcome to this week's Hidden Wealth Review. Why you want to remove your wealth from Washington. I talked about the legislative risk last week. I'm going to give you 3 of them, and here's the problem, but we were able to solve a lot of these, which I'll be teaching this coming Tuesday at retirementprotected.com. That's retirementprotected.com. In fact, for those that register and attend, I want to gift you a really cool calculator we were able to create and use for those that register and attend. And this calculator is going to show you the calculations of the best case scenario, which means the taxes could likely be worse, but the best case scenario of the tax risk road you're traveling, so you know what these required minimum distributions are going to cost, what the tax by reinvesting them is going to cost, and what the tax is going to cost by you and having your children and grandchildren inherit the remainder of your IRAs, folks. And it's not nice. But there's things that you can do, and I'll teach you this Tuesday, again, at retirementprotected.com. It's a complimentary log on and learn educational webinar. And this is what Scott learned. So some of the provisions that are being tossed around in Washington, you don't want to leave your tax exposure at the whims of Washington, folks. That's why you want to remove your wealth from Washington, and here's how, and here's why. One of the first proposals is a unlimited age required minimum distribution, based on those that have saved really well. So if you're somebody listening and you've been a strong saver and you continue, maybe if you're still working, continue to be a strong saver, and these IRAs and 401ks stop, because you are going to be, right, the target of Washington and the whims of Washington you're not going to like of the tax changes that are being proposed. So at any age, if you've done too well in saving in these accounts, you've got to take out 50% every year of the excess cap that they're going to impose on you and I. And then, right, it a certain next proposal is if you reach a certain limit, you can't put any more money in tax deferred or tax free, regular IRA or Roth IRA. And then lastly, and this is the one that really should have you kind of shaking or shimmering in your boots, the removal of being able to move IRA to Roth IRA. Let me give you an example of Scott. Now, Scott's an interesting case because he was exposed to inherited IRAs, large amounts from family members, and almost $500,000. And he doesn't need the income. He's got good pensions, and he's got Social Security, a couple pensions, one strong pension, a smaller pension, and good, strong Social Security. And he already even still works part-time, and he's in his early 70s. And he's like, this forced inherited RMD, required minimum distribution. And remember, Washington's playing around with provisions to just make everybody at any age. You don't have to wait till you're 72, 73, 75, depending on your birth year. They're just saying, hey, if you've done too well in saving, you're going to have to be forced out of this money because we, Washington, want your tax dollars. Well, now, if you've inherited an IRA, just like Scott has, you have to start taking an inherited RMD, and you cannot Roth convert an inherited IRA. But there's a tax deduction. I'll teach you this Tuesday at retirementprotected.com. That's retirementprotected.com. That will enable you to do 2 things. One, we were able to do for Scott. Actually, both we were able to do for Scott. Scott had a little bit of his IRA that still hadn't been converted to Roth, his own IRA. And we showed him how to use this deduction to offset the Roth conversion tax. But we also showed him how to take money out of the inherited IRAs, his choice, and put into this vehicle that allows up to a 75% tax deduction. So let's say he wants to take out, I'll make it up, $75,000 a year. By putting $100,000 a year into this vehicle, which you have to qualify for, that I'll teach you this Tuesday, that provides a $75,000 or 75% tax deduction on $100,000. That means he's getting this money out of the inherited IRA for little to no tax, and if he grosses it up, he can get it out without any tax, which forces him, right, prevents him from being forced, I should say, from having to take this inherited RMD, required minimum distribution, which would have pushed his Medicare Part B and D premiums up, and he would have had no say and no solution around it. He also used the rest of this deduction, right, in a strategy that does allow him to Roth convert his own money before Washington, right, decides to change the provisions on certain people not any longer being able to do Roth conversions. I think of, his goals were simple. Taxes are something I keep an eye on. I'm trying to keep my income stream going, but keep it out of the crosshairs of Washington and taxation. And all my accounts are taxable. He was also somebody that was interesting that we ran into, like Jim from Arizona, who is facing required minimum distributions. And he said, look, and I love how Jim said this, my main issue are taxes, Chuck, and my tax professional doesn't communicate with my financial professional. My financial professional knows not a thing of strategy to save me taxes. He goes, but taxes are the big issue, and the government is coming for my money, and I want to protect mine. Well, folks, understand whether we're talking about true taxation, federal, state tax, inflation tax. The inflation numbers were out this week. Sadly, this idea that we're a long way off, right, from getting back to some normal. In fact, many people are predicting we're at a new normal, that prices are never going to come back down. Well, that's a tax upon itself. And then I think of Social Security tax, Medicare tax, like we talked about, unfortunately, that Scott was faced with, that we alluded, inheritance tax, $84 trillion between now and 2045 from boomers, our parents, our silent generation, right? From silent generation to boomers, right? Between now and 2045, 84 trillion. Let's just say the estate tax is 50%. Think about that. That's $42 trillion of waste, folks. Remove your wealth from Washington. Remove that exposure. Think about it. If their provisions are to create these rules, and remember, the rules are ever changing, like the Secure Act 1.0, the Secure Act 2.0, no more stretch IRAs. I talk about on Hidden Wealth Radio this past weekend, where there was a private letter ruling through the IRS that took years and a lot of tax and expense to avoid somebody not putting their spouse as the beneficiary on their IRA. That went all the way through a private letter ruling with the IRS after thousands and thousands of dollars in time and agony, actually ruled in the taxpayer's favor. Well, all these rules have changed. Who you list as your beneficiary. Here's the number one rule. Just remove your wealth from Washington. Let me teach you how. This coming Tuesday, go to retirementprotected.com. That's retirementprotected.com, and learn how to insulate your income from the IRS, remove your inheritance from Uncle Sam, and protect yourself. You don't want to leave your taxes to the whims of Washington. This administration in particular is putting the absolute hammer on higher and higher tax proposals to pay for all this higher and higher spending. And we see where that's gotten us over these last few years, folks, and it's just digging us deeper. Remove your wealth from Washington. Retirementprotected.com, retirementprotected.com.